The morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling window of my apartment, hitting the polished oak floors and bouncing off the framed awards on my shelf. I sipped my coffee, the warmth cutting through the lingering chill, and adjusted the silk blouse I had bought for a client meeting later that day. Everything looked perfect on the outside, my hair pulled into a sleek bun, my heels sharp, my schedule packed, but inside, a familiar knot tightened in my chest. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my sister flashed across the screen. "Remember your first school show?" Funny story. I froze. That old, familiar heat of embarrassment crawled up my neck. She had been the mastermind behind the infamous school talent show incident, the one where she signed me up to sing just for laughs in front of the entire 5th grade. I could still feel the sting, the way the microphone felt heavy in my hands, my voice cracking in front of the laughing crowd. I laughed quietly at the memory, shaking my head. Even now, years later, that day seemed like a blur of red-faced panic and whispered snickers. Yet, beneath the shame, there was a spark, a tiny, defiant ember that refused to die. I glanced around my apartment, the space I had built quietly, meticulously, away from the teasing and doubt. The framed photos of sold-out shows, the neat piano keys I sometimes practiced on before anyone else arrived, the little golden microphone she had given me after that fateful performance, all reminders that I had grown from that girl trembling on stage to someone who could now control the room with her voice. And for the first time in years, I felt ready to confront the past. I remember that day like it happened yesterday. 5th grade. The cafeteria buzzing with chatter, the smell of warm pizza wafting through the air, and my sister grinning with that mischievous glint in her eyes. I had just walked into the school auditorium when I realized what she had done. She had signed me up for the talent show. For singing. And not just any song, but the one everyone in our grade already teased me about for being too dramatic. My stomach knotted. My hands trembled. I whispered her name, but she just winked, mouthing, "You've got this," in that infuriatingly confident way that made my panic spike. Panic turned to humiliation as the MC called my name. I stepped onto the stage, feeling the spotlights like burning rays, the microphone cold and foreign in my clammy hands. The first note escaped my lips, cracking instantly, and I could hear the suppressed giggles from the back row. My throat tightened, my vision blurred with tears I refused to shed, and every heartbeat screamed that I wanted to vanish. Then, from somewhere in the wings, I felt a small hand pressing a folded piece of paper into mine. It was from Mrs. Reynolds, my music teacher, who had always seen potential in me when no one else did. Scribbled on the note were the words, "Your voice is yours alone. Own it, even when they laugh." That tiny scrap of paper became my lifeline. I closed my eyes, took a shaky breath, and focused, not on the laughing faces, not on my sister's teasing grin, but on the words in that note. I sang through the rest of the song, shaky but determined, my voice growing steadier with each line. By the final note, a stunned silence filled the auditorium. No one had expected it, least of all me. It wasn't perfect. My hands were still shaking, my face flushed with embarrassment. But it was the first time I realized something fundamental, that my voice, my true, raw voice, had power. Power that belonged only to me. That day, I left the stage not as the girl my sister had tried to humiliate, but as someone who had taken the first brave step toward believing in herself. After that school show, I buried the memory deep, but I never buried the fire it had sparked. I began singing wherever I could, shy little recitals at church, private lessons in my bedroom, late-night sessions on the piano in the corner of our living room while everyone else slept. Mrs. Reynolds had introduced me to Ms. Whitman, a retired opera singer who had taught my mother as a girl. Ms. Whitman became my mentor, insisting that talent like mine deserved to be nurtured, not hidden. At first, I doubted myself constantly. Every cracked note and every awkward performance reminded me of that 5th grade humiliation. There were nights I sat alone in front of my mirror, humming softly until my throat ached, wondering if I would ever be good enough. But slowly, painstakingly, I learned discipline, the art of holding a note, controlling my breathing, shaping a song so that it told a story beyond the words. Ms. Whitman's voice echoed in my head. Your voice isn't just sound, it's truth. Don't let anyone make you forget that. College brought new opportunities. I performed at small cafes, fundraisers, and open mics, sometimes to empty rooms, sometimes to audiences who didn't know my name but felt my presence anyway. I met Ethan, a sound engineer who believed in my voice when I doubted it most. He offered honest critique and subtle encouragement, and slowly, doors began to open: a local recording studio, an internship at a radio station, a small label interested in producing my first single. Each step was tiny but monumental, proof that the years of quiet perseverance were not wasted. I learned the power of keeping my life private. My family thought I was studying hard or busy with school projects, never suspecting the hours I spent writing lyrics, recording demos, and planning a future that belonged entirely to me. I posted pictures of sunsets and coffee cups on social media, vague glimpses of my world, careful not to reveal the real milestones. The first gig where the crowd swayed in time to my song. The first check that proved I could earn a living from music. The first time a stranger said, "Your voice," it gave me chills. By the time I graduated, I had a quiet reputation in the local music scene. I had a small but devoted following, a few loyal collaborators, and the beginnings of financial independence. I no longer needed anyone's approval, not my sisters, not the classmates who had laughed at me, not even my own lingering insecurities. Every note I sang was a reminder. The girl who had trembled on that stage in 5th grade had grown into a woman whose voice could fill rooms, command attention, and most importantly, tell her story on her terms. And yet, despite the success, I kept it all hidden from the family who had once doubted me. It was my secret strength, a private triumph I carried like a quiet trophy. I would never gloat. I would never brag. But I knew that one day, the world, or at least those who had laughed at me, would see exactly what I had built from the ashes of embarrassment and doubt. It happened unexpectedly. My sister called one Friday afternoon, her voice cheerful, casual, as though nothing mattered more than catching up. She mentioned she was in town with her family and thought it'd be fun to drop by. I hesitated but smiled, agreeing. After all, I had rehearsed this moment for years, in my head, my heart, my soul. Now it was real. When they arrived, I let them in, offering a polite smile. The first thing my sister noticed was the apartment itself, the soft golden glow of designer lamps, the framed photographs of sold-out concerts, the neatly arranged vinyl records, and the grand piano in the corner, polished to a mirror sheen. Her eyes widened slightly, and I caught a flicker of guilt, or was it disbelief, on her face. "Wow," she breathed, as her children peeked curiously around the doorway. "This is amazing." I led them into the living room, letting them take it all in. My voice broke the silence first, smooth and confident, as I casually hummed the opening notes of a song I had written, letting the melody fill the space. My sister's jaw tightened. She recognized the tune immediately. It had gone viral online months ago, a song that had earned me my first major contract. I watched as their eyes swept the room, landing on the trophies, the awards, the letters of recognition from music executives, and the framed reviews from publications that once seemed untouchable. Each glance told me exactly what they were thinking. They had expected a struggling, timid girl. Not this. Not me, standing tall, confident, composed, and in total command of my world. "Sit down," I said lightly, gesturing to the plush sofa. My sister and her husband obeyed, cautious, uncertain. I perched on the arm of the chair opposite them, leaning slightly forward, letting the silence stretch, letting anticipation build. Then I spoke. "Remember that school show you signed me up for? The one you thought would humiliate me?" My sister's lips parted slightly, no words coming. I continued, calm, measured, almost conversational. I sang. You laughed. And maybe, for a moment, I doubted myself. But I didn't stop. I kept singing. I trained, I performed, I built a career. Today, that little girl you tried to embarrass she has a life you never expected. I let them absorb it. Their expressions shifted: shock, shame, disbelief, pride mingling in awkward, unspoken ways. My sister's hands twitched, fidgeting with her bracelet, unable to look me in the eye. Her children leaned closer, sensing the power in the room, the aura of accomplishment radiating quietly but unmistakably from me. I own my music, my contracts, my studio, I added, letting the words land. I've performed in front of thousands, and yes, some of those people laughed at me once too.
But now they listen.
And they don't forget. I didn't just survive that day, you know the one. I thrived because of it. My sister's face was pale, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Her husband swallowed hard, and the children's whispers were hushed, awe-filled. The contrast between expectation and reality couldn't have been sharper. I leaned back, letting my gaze meet hers. So, I said, soft but firm, the question isn't whether I'm talented. You already know I am. The question is, what do you do now? For the first time in years, I had the upper hand, and it felt incredibly satisfying. The room was quiet, heavy with the weight of realization. My sister and her family sat across from me, trying to process the woman before them. The same little girl they had once dismissed, now radiating confidence, control, and undeniable success. I let the silence linger, letting them feel it, letting them understand that this moment was no accident. I'm going to be honest, I said, my voice calm but firm. I'm not angry anymore. I've grown past the embarrassment, the teasing, the doubt. But I've also learned that respect and effort are earned, not assumed. If you want to be part of my world now, there are conditions. Her eyes widened slightly. Her husband leaned forward, curious, cautious. I straightened, adjusting my silk blouse, letting the gesture mark my authority. First, I began. I want honesty. No more jokes at someone else's expense. No undermining, no passive-aggressive comments. That stops today. You want to connect with me? You approach with sincerity, not mockery. Second, I continued, my tone softening slightly. I want effort. You can't just show up expecting my world to welcome you automatically. That means participating, supporting your own passions, showing responsibility, following through on promises. You can't ride my success. You need to build your own. And third, I added, looking directly at my sister, I want acknowledgement. Acknowledge the years I spent perfecting my craft. Acknowledge the struggles I endured alone. Acknowledge that this isn't just a talent. It's a lifetime of work, of discipline, and of believing in myself when no one else did. Her face shifted, embarrassment mixed with realization. I could see it, the spark of understanding that she had underestimated me, that she had never truly recognized my strength. Her children watched silently, learning the weight of accountability without a word being spoken to them directly. I'm offering you a chance to change, to grow, and to connect honestly, I said, letting my voice carry a subtle warmth. This isn't about revenge. It's about breaking patterns, about learning that relationships require respect, effort, and acknowledgement. If you're willing to do that, we can move forward. If not, well, I'll continue thriving, with or without you. The room was heavy with thought. My sister's hands fidgeted, her husband's jaw tightened, and the children's wide eyes reflected curiosity, awe, and perhaps the first inkling of understanding about the power of integrity. I leaned back slightly, letting my posture communicate confidence. I wasn't threatening. I wasn't pleading. I was simply stating my terms, the rules of engagement that ensured my growth wouldn't be undermined by old dynamics. I had the power now, not through revenge, not through wealth, not even through my voice alone, but through clarity, boundaries, and the refusal to settle for anything less than respect. For the first time, I could feel that the balance had shifted. And I knew, silently, that this was the moment where past humiliation was transformed into current empowerment. They would learn or they would step aside. Either way, I was untouchable in my own truth. Weeks passed after that day, and slowly, subtly, I noticed changes. My sister stopped making offhand jokes. She called me for advice, not mockery, and even signed her kids up for music lessons, encouraging them to find their own voices. Her husband seemed more present, more engaged, and not just in my world, but in his own responsibilities. It wasn't instant and it wasn't perfect, but it was progress. I watched all of it quietly, sipping my coffee in the early mornings, the sunlight spilling across my apartment, feeling a sense of calm I hadn't allowed myself in years. I reflected on that fifth-grade stage, the trembling hands, the cracked first note, and the note from Mrs. Reynolds that had changed everything. The tiny scrap of paper, now tucked safely in my desk drawer, had been a symbol of trust and belief, not from the world, but from someone who saw me when no one else did. That same belief had fueled every late night, every rehearsal, every leap of faith I had taken to get here. I realized that my journey wasn't just about proving my sister wrong, it was about proving myself right, about honoring that little girl who had been scared and uncertain, but who had never truly given up. I had built a life, a career, a voice that could move people, inspire them, and leave a lasting impression. And in doing so, I had created boundaries that preserved my dignity and empowered those around me to step into their own growth. One evening, while sitting at my piano, I ran my fingers over the keys, the smooth wood familiar under my fingertips. I hummed the first song I had ever sung publicly, the one that had made me tremble with fear, and I smiled. That song was no longer a memory of humiliation. It was a reminder of resilience, of courage, of triumph. Looking out the window, I felt a sense of completeness. The relationships that mattered had strengthened, the lessons I needed were firmly etched into my being, and the voice I had cultivated, my voice, had carried me further than I had ever imagined. And in that moment, I whispered softly to myself, the words echoing like a quiet anthem. I sang when they doubted me, I rose when they laughed, and now I shine on my own terms.